Welcome back to the Skylanders Ultimate Nightmare series, where I will play a solo run with every Skylander on Nightmare mode to see which Skylanders and which of their upgrade paths are better. Starting off today, we've got Chop Chop on the Vampiric Warrior upgrade path. Here, the upgrades you have available to you are Sword Attack does more increased damage, Sword Attack has longer range and does more increased damage, and you can use combos. Besides the combo that you start out with, where you press the primary attack and he lunges forwards, you unlock the ability to do a spin with the secondary combo, and to launch out the Bone Bramblers with a tertiary combo. Although I don't really know what the point of that is, when you can just use the Bone Bramblers normally. It doesn't seem to activate a special version of the Bone Brambler move or anything like that, it's just the normal bones. Please let me know if there is something special about it, but throughout the entirety of both of these runs I did not notice anything. But what I did notice is that the sword's increased range is actually pretty helpful. It allows you to hit tons of enemies at the same time, granted you're willing to get close enough to them, but you kinda have to, so. What is nice about the sword is that he has an upgrade where whenever you kill an enemy with the sword, you heal 7 HP. This isn't exclusive to this upgrade path, it's just much more useful on it, considering you'll be using the sword so much more often. It is a bit unfortunate that that HP doesn't scale due to enemies having more HP or to higher difficulties, but that's okay. So I fell off the edge just a few times in the Rumbletown arena. I was playing quite carelessly and kind of just walked off due to my own accord, not like an enemy knocked me off. So, oops. Thankfully I was still able to beat the level though. One thing I do think is kind of unfortunate about Chop Chop's moveset design is that if you have the sword upgrade path, then the shield feels kind of pointless, except for blocking attacks sometimes. And if you have the shield upgrade path, then the sword feels kind of pointless, except for occasionally healing off of enemies. And I much prefer when all of the moves of the character are viable. But that being said, because neither upgrade path focuses on upgrading the Bone Bramblers, it's actually pretty useful on both paths, even here where the sword is my main damage. If you're able to line up an enemy to hit multiple of the hits in a row, it can be pretty powerful. Or it can hit many enemies at a time, and it actually is his only ranged move. Chop Chop struggles a bit on the ice section because the shield bash does not properly move you across the ice, but you can at least block the Executioner's main hit. However, if you try to shield an attack that's too powerful, you'll still take a little bit of damage. The shield will mitigate almost all of it, which is still really good, but it means you can't be blocking infinitely, especially on Nightmare mode. And as you may imagine, it only blocks from the front, not behind, so it's not just a button you can press to become intangible. Chop Chop is one of those characters who kinda struggles when there's a lot of armored Mohawk Cyclopses. He doesn't quite deal enough damage to knock off the armor too quickly, and they can kind of surround him real easily. But what he is great at is stalling until the Archean Bomber gives you the 200 damage projectile you need to take out all these guys at once. And luckily for me, he's even good at that without the shield upgrade path. The jousters on the bridge kind of caused a few issues like they usually do. If they start swinging and attacking out of sync, it can be kind of hard to hit them, which will cancel the move. You can hit one or two at a time to block them, but then maybe the third one's gonna attack you, and because I'm close range, it's hard to dodge. The Vault of Secrets is not an easy level, but it definitely becomes significantly easier when you utilize these bombs well to take out the tankier enemies. With only one main threat of an enemy at a time, it's pretty easy to just play Ring Around the Rosie and dodge their main attacks. And it is worth noting that the Bone Brambler can go up the walls, and in this case hit the Troll Grenader a bit early. Here, I probably should have used my shield a bit more. The secondary combo is pretty powerful here against the swarm of enemies, especially because Skylanders of the undead element are strong here. Just make sure not to get trapped in between them all. This is a new one to me, but I got stuck behind the fence here, so I couldn't dodge the grenade in time. Definitely could have used the shield there as well, but I just didn't think of it at the time. Unfortunately, the Elemental Zone boost meant that I could take out the rest of the enemies in this section pretty quickly. I prefer to not take any more major damage before the Chompy Mage fight. I don't know what exactly I did here to let both of these guys hit me, but this is a really close call now. I can heal a little bit by killing enemies with a sword, and there's only a little bit of food up until here, so I'm gonna have to play pretty well to not take any more big hits. What these trolls don't know is that I'm going to lead them right onto the landmine for them to take big damage. The Chompy bot is relatively easy as long as you back up right when he's about to stomp. and the Chompies he summons can be killed for a little bit of health. And I'm gonna need all the health I can get if I keep getting hit like this. And as I was trying to run away from the grenades, I got a little bit stuck, and then I pressed the Bone Brambler button instead of shielding and turning around. So now we're onto the Undead Defender upgrade path. Here you can hold out the shield to absorb damage that you take, and it will be unleashed automatically with another upgrade, as well as the fact that shield bashing stuns enemies now. Like I said earlier, being on this upgrade path means that your sword moves are going to be kind of worthless, so you're going to be spamming shield a lot. Also, normally the shield needs to take quite a bit of damage in order to launch back at enemies, but on Nightmare mode you are always going to be taking a lot of damage, so it's really easy to fully charge it. Yet again, the Bone Bramblers are going to be pretty useful because they are a ranged move, which Chop Chop does not have, although the Series 2's Shield Bash does go really far really quickly. The stunning ability of the Shield Bash unfortunately does not work on the bigger enemies, so you are going to have to come up with a different solution for them, but the bash itself is still pretty good damage. This may be just a me thing, but I found it a little difficult sometimes to aim the shield bash, and I would often just go right past an enemy even if it looked like I was going to hit them. But otherwise it's great for getting yourself out of sticky scenarios. I've always been a player who likes when a character is really mobile, so being able to just shield bash to dash around the map is really fun. You can of course do that on both upgrade paths, but here it'll be much more effective with the stun and the extra damage. If you can manage to pull it off, you can sometimes stun an enemy with the shield, and then shield bash them again to push them right off the edge, which is what I did here to take care of most of the arena's enemies. Chop Chop on the shield upgrade path struggles a little bit more with some of these bigger health enemies, because his biggest damage would be the shield bash, but that also forces you to move forwards. Sometimes the movement is what you want, but other times you want to stand in a specific spot in order to dodge an enemy. Or just at the very least, to not have to zoom all around the map just to hit them. Especially considering sometimes you'll be stunning the enemy you hit, and so you don't want to go far away in order to hit them again. This issue isn't as big as I'm making it out to be, I do just want to point it out. And it is pretty satisfying to just sit in front of the Executioner and let him kill himself. Interestingly, you can block the Executioner's axe after he's thrown it, which will launch it off in a random direction, but it doesn't actually slow down his attack cycle because he just calls it back. And even on this upgrade path, the Mohawks were still kinda hard to deal with. Reflecting huge amounts of damage doesn't really work when these guys still have their helmets on. But I did soon find out that the Bone Bramblers get them pretty easily. And not a moment too soon, I was one hit away from death. I decided it might be a good idea to not go near these Executioners, letting them teleport around when there's 3 at once, so I just used the Bone Brambler from a range. This guy turns really slow when he's trying to aim at me, so zooming around everywhere really helps to make sure this guy can't lock onto you. I do have to say, it feels pretty great being able to block these moves that are supposed to deal hundreds of damage to you and only receive like 20. You can't do it too much unless you have a lot of healing, but you can use the primary attack for that, as weak as it is on this upgrade path. Don't mind me just positioning this enemy right in the range of this bomb. The shield is pretty great and all, but you do have to remember when there is a grenade right behind you to not take it down too early. Yet again, the Undead Elemental Zone makes the ending of this chapter quite a breeze to deal with. Although somehow, and I really don't know how this happened again, I got stuck behind the same fence as last time, but I did have the foresight to take out the grenade generals, so it didn't actually cause any issues. And these bark demons get absolutely obliterated by the Bone Bramblers, killing them in record time. I made sure this time not to get put to 100 health right at the start of this chapter, so it's looking good so far. Overall, I think Chop Chop is pretty fun. Before going into this run, he wasn't one of my favorites, and I had him on the sword upgrade path, but now I like him quite a bit, and I think I prefer the shield upgrade path. The counterattacking by absorbing damage with the shield, and the shield bash stun I think are pretty fun to play with. It is a shame though that the sword becomes pretty much worthless except for healing on chompies. And also, I did not realize the shield could not block me from here. Shield path Chop Chop probably should have made it a little farther.